back to the MotorFab YouTube channel. Here we are, we've got the bullet out of the big donk, out of the Torana. Like we said at the start, or like I said at the start, I'm going to continually involve you guys in the progress and development of this car, and the testing and everything behind the scenes. We have been a little secretive with some of the numbers lately, but that's just because the type of events we're running. We can't really state too many numbers. They don't let you in if you've stated numbers. And also the type of racing that I'm starting to do, it is kind of an advantage if other people don't know what you run. So that makes what I promised you guys at the start a little difficult, but we'll try our best to work around that. I have got some criticism along the way for saying I'm going to make 2,000, 2,500 out of a 23-degree headed small block Chevy. Well, let me tell you, so one number I can tell you, we're 156 mile an hour to the 8th a couple of weeks ago in testing on a no prep track, gumboots on the back. That well and truly represents pretty much there on 2,000. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, who knows. But the good thing about that was it was on 12 degrees of timing and 31 pounds of boost, and not even trying. That thing will see 50, 60 pounds of boost, and they'll see in excess of 20 degrees of timing, probably about 18 or 19, maybe at 50 pounds. We will see. So it has a lot left in it, and so far structurally everything's hanging in there. Have one small problem with it: the intake manifold gaskets. It's eating them, it's sucking in some oil, it's blowing out some boost into the crankcase, and that is causing some oil leaks. So that is the main reason why it's out. The second reason is the converter's really tight. So our boy James Horan hooked us up with some new stators which I've ordered to suit, and so we're going to go over that, and we're going to change stators in the converter. So the box had to come out to change the converter had to come out. And so I thought, well, I may as well pull the motor and fix the oil leaks and address the intake manifold gaskets. We're going to go through all of that right now and see how we go. Okay, so here's our donk. It isn't the prettiest thing around. Everyone's going to point that out. It leaks through the exhaust manifold. That's the traditional bolt pattern. I run a revised bolt pattern so we could run bigger pipes. With all the work I did on the heads, I really should have welded the holes up, but they leak a little bit. Doesn't seem to bother anyone. You can't even hear it. So, not the prettiest motor I know, but these are two spark plugs that were in it when I made the last test pass. So you can see they look like they just come out the box. We've got no timing mark. That one has a very slight timing mark up higher, very high, and all the cadmium is still intact. Those plugs straight out the box. Now, let me just show you. I held on to these for a few years to make this comparison. These, not that one. I'll get to that in a minute. This is a plug out of the Ute when I had this motor in the Ute. Now you can see this plug went 140 mile an hour on that pass. Probably did a couple looking at the state of it. This plug went 156 mile an hour. Now, they look substantially different. This one's melted off all the cadmium, and on that side it's burnt it right down to the first thing. Around the back there, it's actually down a couple of threads. The timing mark is hard to see, but it's right down at the base strap. That had around 40 pounds and around about 26, 28 degrees timing. Yeah, around 26. So I was leaning on that engine quite a bit to try to make it faster. Now, the engine is very similar to that engine. A few differences. One, we did some more work on the cylinder heads, a lot of work, which we'll go through in a second. Two, the other one had a single plane with a Wilson elbow. I can't show you a computer test that says how much difference that made, but I believe this system makes a lot more power, and I'll go through that with you in a second. Secondly, it has a different compression ratio. The cam is the same, the injectors are the same, the block is the same, the heads are the same but being worked. Essentially it's the same kind of engine, it just has these changes which we'll go over. Now you got to remember that the engine is a big nitrogen pump. It takes nitrogen in, squashes it, then it starts a fire in there with oxygen and fuel and heats up that nitrogen. The nitrogen is inert. It doesn't do anything. the nitrogen expands and pushes the piston down. The nitrogen doesn't burn. The oxygen and the fuel burns to heat the nitrogen. That's how a combustion engine works. Now, with the old engine, old plug destroyer, it could get, the turbo was at its limit. The cylinder heads were at their limit. The manifold and elbow was at its limit. So that engine was getting hard pressed for nitrogen in its nitrogen pump. So we were having to put a lot of timing in it and make it really lean to try to get the most heat out of the nitrogen to keep making the engine faster. Now, it was also very low compression. It was like 8 to 1, 7.9, 8 to 1. This engine's like 10.8 to 1. So one, the compression. We're squishing the same amount of nitrogen into a smaller area. It's always going to give you more bang for buck. If you're on a cylinder head or turbocharged limited combination, my advice is always go as much compression as you can get in that thing. Cylinder heads were at their limit. These cylinder heads flow more. It gets more in. Now, this obviously distributes the air a lot better. Let me just pull this off. Now this setup, you can see right down, sorry the camera's playing silly buggers, right down all the way to the intake valves. Let me get my head out of the light. So there you go, right down to the valves. The heads flow a lot better. This setup, boost builds up off the back of the intake valve. So the turbo drives it all in through the manifold in here. It sits on the back of the valve and it stacks up as the valve, as the air gets pushed in. It stacks off the back of the intake valve all the way up, fills all this, all full of pressure, fills the whole entire system full of pressure. When the intake valve opens, bang! You want the longest, not the longest. That's a lie. You want the straightest path you can get and a lot of volume back behind it to put as much air as straight as you can down that intake valve. Now you can go into all sorts of things like valve jobs and all that sort of stuff. Robbie did a fantastic job of getting the valve angles right and getting the correct valves, all that sort of stuff. Combustion chamber, the way that the valve is unshrouded, it all works together. It's all airflow at the end of the day. So the more nitrogen you can put in means the less you have to heat it. This plug is smoked because it had to heat the nitrogen really hot to make power. This other plug, this good one, that's just come out of this engine, it's not heating the nitrogen hardly at all. So it doesn't, the cylinder temperature is way cooler for way more power. Probably similar power, a little bit more. Now, people say, oh, it doesn't matter with the turbo engine, just put more boost in it. That's a lie, because more boost equals more heat. More heat means less nitrogen in the air. So the volume of air, as it becomes hotter, it's less dense. The nitrogen's already started as its expansion. You want as much cold nitrogen as you can in there to then heat the engine. Now, nitrous puts a lot of nitrogen in it, but that's a plug out of the Monaro. Now you'll see there's bits of engine melted to the top of that one. That's bits of flake. Those little melted shiny pieces on the top, they're bits of piston flake that tie off the top. The reason why, and that plug is cooked, the cadmium is burnt off. The reason why that engine, it can only ingest so much nitrogen, so much nitrous. The only way I can make power with it, I'm shooting 500 plus horsepower with the nitrous in it. It won't really, it's a low compression engine, small cube. It won't suck much more nitrous into its own system. So I have to lean it out and jam the timing into it to try to make power. And it is hard on the engine because it has to get the cylinder pressure, the cylinder temperature so hot to make that same amount of power. So this more efficient engine, more compression, better cylinder head flow, much better intake design. And the other thing, those pulsar turbos, much bigger turbos, are producing a lot more cold air. So we're getting a whole heap more air into every stroke of that combustion chamber, and we hardly have to time it. Up until I put 2 degrees extra in it when it went 156, I was only running 10 degrees of timing this whole time, and it's made a stack of power. Before I was running 26 degrees of timing. I don't need to light it, so I don't need to put so much temperature into the setup. Now this here is one of Ryan's one of his billet Hemis. This one's a screw blower one. His Pro Charge ones. He's also had twin turbo ones. Let's take a look at some plugs. Now Ryan goes through a lot of spark plugs. He has more of these boxes. I recently made him this jig so that you can drill the spark plug on the machine here, and they turn them into keychains and sell them because they only make one pass, one set of plugs. Now that one's dirty because someone's put their finger on the top of it. They're all, some of them get oil. They spray them with oil so they don't get dirty. There you go, that there, just like what came out of the Torana. Looks like it's new in the box. Now that is making over 4,000 horsepower, and the plugs look like they come out of the box still. So they're putting a lot of cold nitrogen in that engine, and they don't have to lean on it so much. Now pretty much any forced induction engine has the capability, if you light the timing early enough, the amount of nitrogen that is in you can't do it with an NA engine. There's not enough nitrogen ingested per stroke. But anything with forced induction, any type of forced induction, as soon as you're running a healthy amount of boost, you have the ability, you can put 40, 50 degrees timing in that thing. What will happen is that nitrogen will get so hot, it expands so much, it just turns into a blowtorch and it cuts its way through the piston, the side of the head, or whatever, or it pre-detonates and explodes and it starts breaking stuff. So the engine has the capability to make a ton of power. The problem is nitrogen, once you get it to that higher temperature, is unpredictable. When you're heating it and expanding it at a cooler range, you can get the same amount of power, same amount of expansion as driving the piston down, as making the car go fast, without so much temperature, and that is the key. The old engine in the Ute I was running 850, 875 degrees Celsius on the EGTs. 1,000 will tip a plug every time. This engine, like 500 if I'm lucky, is not making a lot of temperature yet. The good thing is I know, especially now with top fuel hoops and a stronger engine, I can go up to 800, 900. So we have so much left in that combination. And it's gonna make more power without even going anywhere near close to leaning on it to that level. Okay, so far the car's been working really good. Obviously I designed and built the whole chassis. It was a lot of unknowns, a lot of variables. You guys probably remember that I did that sexy 4-link that I designed. A lot of things were a guesstimate. So I put everything together. I've only made 2 very slight shock changes, and I haven't made any 4-link changes, no chassis changes. It is just working. You guys saw from some of the other videos, like for some of the other races that we did, that we're hanging with the good guys in the first 330 feet. So I think there's more left in the 4-link, and I'd love to make a bar change, but then I worry that I'm going to mess up something that I got right from a guess straight out of the gate. But when we get more time to test, we will make some changes with the 4-link and experiment a little. The only thing that is making it really hard at the moment to go fast, and the converter is awesome. It's just that a converter is like an engine. You have to tune it to suit the car. And this part is new to me. And so by changing stators, you change that converter. Now here's a data log from that last pass. So I actually tell you lies, we peaked at 31.1 PSI, but by the end of the pass, we were down to 27 PSI boost. So to run those kind of numbers on 27 pounds is crazy. We'll call it what you will. At one point it was 31 there, at one point it was 27. Now this pink salmony color line is RPM. That's on the 2-step. Now first problem that we have, when you let go of the button, when I let go of the button, it dips. It needs to climb straight away. So that is straight away an issue that's causing the car to go slow. And then it sort of rolls out slow. It needs to just climb and ramp. This is the main problem right here though. See how it looks like it's hit a limiter? That's actually the converter coupling. And when the converter couples, when it's so tight like that, it's stopping the engine accelerating. So the engine's just stopping dead in its track, and it can't overcome it until the green line boost gets high enough. It starts to drive, it starts to make enough power that it will overcome that tight converter. And the problem with that is this white line is drive shaft. When it's steady like that, it's accelerating. It'll always have wheel speed off the line and shake a little, but then it sort of settles and gets going. And then here, that's just the tire spinning. It's out of control because the converter, being too tight, set it off. It was just way too aggressive when it locked up. And then the problem then, we don't have enough speed up, the car doesn't accelerate. So you see it shifts gear here, 6,600, and then it's a very slow crawl to 7,000 to get out to the finish line. So it doesn't gain a lot. We need that to gain more, we need that to rise earlier, and we need that definitely not to happen. So James made me 2 stators, and so we're gonna try one of those, put that in, hopefully clear up that whole setup a lot, and then we can start trying to make some power out of this engine. Right now it's making power so easy, we don't need that much just yet. So let's get in and change this stator. Okay, so I'm just gonna give the converter a good clean. That's obviously the part that bolts to the flex plate. So I just gave the inside a clean out. Then we have this little shim here. So we'll make sure that's all right and true. One-hand converter build. And then there is this little guy here, little Torrington bearing. And then we have, let's just move that. So that's our stator. Now, I'll let that bearing sit down there. That's our stator. There's our spline bit in the middle there. And that has, just put that down there, it's clean. So that's our stator that came out. So all we're changing is the degrees pitch on these fins. So we have another one over there. So we had a 36 degree in there. I bought a 32 and a 29. So we're gonna go in the middle, obviously, and go with the 32. So we'll go back over here, we'll go our shim, that's Torrington. This little part over here, this is our turbine. Now, I cleaned all this before, just got some fluid on it. So we're gonna put the turbine in like that. It's good. It's just got some nice fresh fluid on it. And that goes in there. Then we have another roll of bearing there. And then that one, this is the part we didn't clean. I'll sit that down like that. There's another bearing under there, as you can probably see. They never fall off when you want them to. They always fall off when you don't want them to. So that bad boy goes in there like that. Bearing at the top there. I popped all these bearings apart and cleaned them. They pop apart really easy. I did have to get James out to show me how to do it the first time because I was scared I was going to bend it. But yeah, so then that's the one side of it. And then the rest is in there. And then that flips over and bolts down to there. I've got an O-ring there, which I can't do one-handed. But there you go. New stator and a converter should be about 500 RPM looser. So that 6,600 lockup point now should be like 7,100. It sounds crazy, I know, to lock it up so far up in the rev range, but it's weird. It's a lot of boost. It just wants to make a lot of power up there, and down lower, although it's still making a lot of power, it just doesn't climb as fast as we want it to. So this is going to be a game changer, Ryan tells me. It's all new to me, changing stators and stuff. I used to just take my converter back to the converter shop and say I keep blowing through the thing. But yeah, Ryan tells me game changer to loosen this thing up. Righto, converter's done. We got a stator that came out of there and a spare left to go. I that's why we went with the bolt together. Those things aren't cheap, but it is perfect to be able to change the stator. That was kind of like a radial setup in there before, and now we're going to more of a like a no prep setup. It's hard because of different engines, different turbochargers, different car weights. You're never going to get it right first go, and I never expected to. So that's changed. Let's hope that's a night and day difference. And then we're going to go over here because I had one more thing that I wanted to tell you guys about on the engine that I mentioned earlier. I'm always praising small block Chevys because they rev really hard, they're good on valve train, they have stacks of head bolts, so they take a ton of boost. They are generally a lot stronger than an LS. They're almost as strong as a big block, but they're nice and light and they fit in stuff. So they're a great little combination. Now, I always talk about the benefits, but they do have some downsides. And one of those downsides is gaskets and sealing the things up. LS's with their multi-layer stainless gaskets and printed stuff and everything's built, they don't leak. They don't have problems, but we can deal with a couple of little exhaust leaks or whatever. That doesn't bother me too much. But here, just hang on while I put the camera down for a sec. This is an issue that's not just a pesky leak. We put a lot of work into that manifold. If those who watched the whole build remember, I started with a tunnel ram with winter snowflake that I should never have machined up, but I did. So it was a bit of an unknown to start with, and did a lot of work on it. So I had to have a lot of machining to get it back to the right angle and stuff like that. And Robbie did a fantastic job porting the heads and making them flow heaps. Another problem with small block Chevy, the intake ports are a bit of a limitation. Now people go bigger, but I said to Robert, let's just stick with 1206 because you still have a bit of meat left everywhere. You can go bigger, but then they start to get too thin. I have had heads before that are too thin and they're just a nightmare. So Robbie's stuck in the 1206 gasket, probably even a little bit smaller in some spots to keep some meat in the heads. Same sort of deal with the manifold, but because the manifold's been machined down, it's sitting lower than it should. And so I've got a 1266, so there's a big fat gasket on there to try to raise it up, but it's only 120 thou. It actually needs to come up a bit more to get the ports to line up. You can see here the port's sitting lower. Now there's not a lot under there, so by the time you take that much away from that, these start to leak. Now you can see oil staining in the bottom of the ports there, and what happens is it's under vacuum, it sucks oil in, they run smoky, but under boost they pressurize all this. Now that causes the China wall pushed out, and you can see at a race meet in desperation I wiped a whole heap of silicone across the front of it to try to minimize the leak. Cam belt's covered in oil, everything's wet with oil there because the pressure pushes through that hole in the back there and pushes the O-ring out of the cam belt drive. I don't run a distributor, I run a cam sync sensor which goes in there, and it was blowing oil up through the cam sync sensor. So, and the reason that is, small block Chevy problem number however many we're up to, there's no bolts. They got better bolting system on the water jacket than they do on the intake port. So if they had had like a bolt there and there, it would have been perfect, or even move these across, but then they fail with the push rod. So it's a long way between bolts at the top and the bottom there. So you can see the gaskets come unglued there and there, and they come unglued down there. So that is being good. My old engine used to eat those and suck them in. This one's still semi-glued, it's a little loose in the middle. This one's let go completely, but it hasn't sucked the gasket in, so it would have been still sealing to some degree. It hasn't actually busted the gasket anywhere, but it is sucking oil up through here, and it is blowing pressure into here. So flat out gaskets up in Illinois have made me some custom spacer plates to bring this up 160 thou, and it's a solid aluminum spacer, and we're running a special gasket each side of it. So they're confident that's going to fix that problem, and I can do away with this big old fat fiber gasket and actually try to seal some boost into this thing. So that's going to hopefully solve a lot of problems. So that was one of the reasons why I want to pull it out and address it. You can see heaps more oil standing down in there. So we're gonna get that sorted, and that's it. That's everything. You should be able to put it back together. Thanks for stopping by again. Shout out to everyone who supported this build right from the start. It's gonna continue. A lot of people ask about the Monaro. It's just chilling. It's coming back, but need a little bit more time. So it's I think we have had a few different incarnations of the Monaro. I think next will be Series 3 and it'll be totally different again. So that car will always keep coming back, and so will this one. So we're just going to fix up those little pesky leaks and annoying stuff in the motor. The converter's a big one. Shifted some weight around in the car. I'm going to tidy a few things up in the car, some wiring and plumbing and stuff like that was annoying me. And then we've got a traction control map now. So we have traction control, which will take a little bit of fine tuning, but I am really keen to do some testing this time instead of rushing to try to get to races untested, because I think with these few changes, I'm going to be able to go really fast. So stay tuned, heaps more to come. Thanks for watching. Shout out to everyone that's watching, and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Support the channel. Over and out.